Well, welcome, my fellow fanatical elves. This is the Cleveland Oracle Speaks, and actually, there are two oracles today. Not only me, but also my good friend Joel Cade, who actually knows something about football. I'm pretty good at numbers, I think, and salary cap and stuff like that. But Joel actually played left guard at Notre Dame and knows something about offensive line play. And Joel, I'm very interested in the dilemma that the Cleveland Browns face, where they have four big salaries on the offensive line and only three positions that they can play. And I think that um, presents a challenge in roster management. But I think that they have two guys that have to play. Ethan Posick is the center, and he's really the only candidate to play center. And I think Dewan Jones, by virtue of being such an outstanding player as a rookie, has to play tackle, probably at right tackle, although I think he has also played left tackle at Ohio State, and he could potentially switch back to left tackle, though everybody loves him at right tackle. So those two guys, I think, have to be on the offensive line starting, but then they've got other guys that they're paying huge salaries to, namely Jack Conklin, the former All Pro. They have Jed Wills, who is also a tackle. They have Joel Bitonio, and they have Wyatt Teller. Um, Everybody except for Jed Wills has been to a Pro Bowl at least. And Wills was somebody that they picked up the fifth-year option on, so he's getting paid a lot of money. So what are we going to do with four guys and only three positions on the offensive line that they can play?
Well, thanks for letting me come back onto the show and hang out. I mean, I'm sure a lot of your listeners were aware of our other podcast, the Cleveland Browniacs, but it's great to be back. Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of people, but the other thing you got to remember is Jed Wills, but Jack Conklin has the annual knee injury, so you're going to need somebody to be back while you're paying him all this roster money to be injured. Um, I know how you come up with some numbers, and the numbers make sense, but I want to come at it a different way, which is probably why you had me on the show. Let's talk about Ken Dorsey's offense, right? Ken Dorsey's being brought in as the new offensive coordinator, and he's going to want to put his kind of flavor on the offense. So the question is, what becomes important on the offensive line in terms of his offense? Now, traditionally, the Browns have run an outside zone offense, and they've needed guards for that offense. You need all pros, or at least somebody who can reach a three technique, which Teller and Batonio have been able to do. So the question is that necessary for the new offense with Dorsey? I don't know. Okay, I just spent the last hour watching Bills games, and I've watched a horrible run offense that can't run an outside zone for their life, and it eventually came down to they can't run the football, so they got rid of Ken Dorsey, and then Josh Allen just threw the ball all over the yard, and that's what they had for offense. So that start of the question is, what does the offense need to look like in a Ken Dorsey offense? So what does the offensive line need to look like? I think you're right in that Posick needs to play. I think Batonio needs to play. I think Wyatt Teller needs to play. Jed Wills, you're paying a lot of money to. I'm not sure that lasts after this year. And then you've got this dilemma with Conklin and the name just Dewan Jones. You got this dilemma with Conklin and Jones, and I think Conklin's going to end up getting hurt. We'll see Jones anyway, even if Jones doesn't start the season because of the Conklin injury. So,
Oh, okay. Well, so what? So your your plan is to wait for Conklin to get hurt, and then the problem resolves itself. Is that what you're
I
saying?
think that's logical and historical, and pretty much I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. So I was bewildered as to why they extended Conklin anyway, but I mean,
Well, yeah, I think it was not a smart move, but having made that move, I actually have a proposal there. Um, what I think, especially actually, um, I devised this proposal before they enlarged the salary cap, but I thought that what they needed to do was to trade one of the guards, and possibly that, um, what we don't know is Batonio's actual health situation, because
Hmm.
up to this point he'd been an Iron Man and he played every snap. And then he finally missed some snaps this season. He was kind of banged up and had a back injury, which is, one of the things that can be problematic. But
Hmm.
two guys that know him well, understand his uh, his history and the impact of the injury on his play. Uh, and that would be Alex Van Pelt, who's the offensive coordinator in New England,
Hmm.
and that would also be Bill Callahan, who is the offensive line coach in Tennessee. So I think Tennessee and New England might be willing to make a trade with the Browns for Batonio's services if, in fact, they believe that he is uh, going to recover from the injuries that he had in 2023. So I thought
Let me
that
say this,
they
Elliot.
might be willing to make the trade.
Let me jump in on this.
Yes.
Um, if you wanted to trade one of those two guards, okay, I would recommend you trade Wyatt Teller. And I know that's not going to go over well with Carly Teller and that kind of situation, but I would trade Wyatt Teller because Wyatt Teller is more of a one-dimensional player than Joel Batonio is. Wyatt Teller is an excellent run blocker. Okay, and we've seen all these videos of him pulling and smashing people and blah blah blah, but we don't see highlights of his pass blocking. So unless it's like he just like totally got beat at the line and gave up a sack, we don't see much of that stuff. And here's the other point: what is easier replaceable, the right guard or your left guard? And the answer is your right guard, because the progression of failed tackles, like let's go back to Jed Wills. Let's say Jed Wills fails as a left tackle. The next thing they're going to do is put him at right tackle. Okay. So you could see him go over to right tackle and DeJuan Jones go to left tackle, and that be a better situation for the Browns long term. That could be a situation. Now, let's say he fails at right tackle. Where does he go next? Well, next he goes to right guard. Okay. So that's how you end up with a progression. If you don't start as a guard, you end up with failed left tackles going to right tackle, who fail at right tackle end up at guard. And there's a lot of those in the league. So you have a better road to replacing Wyatt Teller than you do Joel Batonio, because the left guard situation is a lot more difficult to replace, because you need that guy to, one, protect the blind side in the pass protection. Two, because you can never move Teller to left guard because of his pass protection situation. So he's always going to be a right guard. Period. All right. So you could move Batonio, but then you're losing the guy who more than often than not is the one trying to reach a three technique in a zone play. And you really don't want to lose that guy. And you really don't want to lose the guy that's protecting your blind side. And for most right-handed running teams, your left guard is the one who's pulling and smashing people more than, say, Wyatt Teller is. And Batonio is really good at that. So I would say Teller is easier to replace than Batonio, and their cap hits are relatively similar. Um, Looking this up, Batonio is the 8th highest paid guard in the league, and Teller is the 10th. So there's not
Oh,
much difference in cap hit you're going to get there.
oh, no, no, no. Here's what the difference is. That Batonio is only on contract for 1 year, and so the risk and the total investment is relatively small. And so I think that you could sign him and say, okay, we're just signing him for 1 year, and we'll wait and see what he's going to do after the season.
Mm-hmm.
But with Wyatt Teller's contract is, I'm not sure that he's tradable because his contract is so cuckoo. He's getting paid 11.6 this season, but in
Most of which is wrapped up in
2025,
bonuses.
2025 he's getting 14.4 in cap, and then 19.5 in 2026. Well, okay, well, that's right. Let's think about what the
I don't think he lasts that long. You want my honest opinion? I don't think he
well,
lasts
okay,
long.
but Actually, though, you're right, though. This is bonus money. Let me think about
Hmm.
how much the salary is going to be. Um,
I think 2026 are those infamous dead cap years, right? Because if you look up 2020, I'm on Spotrac, right? And 2026, he doesn't even have a base salary. He just has option bonus and restrict restructuring
yeah,
bonus.
these are other bonuses. So, okay, so that bonus money, okay, that's right. Okay, so he can be traded because these bonus monies would get uh would get paid by the Browns, but
Right. And so
um,
his dead money, let's say they traded him today, his dead hit would be 16.7. All right, Batonio's, if they traded him today, like they had to eat the whole thing, his dead would be 16.5. So you're talking the Browns would actually save $200,000 by offing parting ways with Teller than they would with Batonio.
okay, so he Wyatt Teller could be traded, and the it would be up to them to negotiate some kind of cost sharing arrangement with the new team,
Right.
so that they can get the cap situation kind of under control,
And you do have
and
Luke
that would take.
Whippler. You do have Luke Whippler in the wings there, which I think could become an effective guard. Those guys who play center can play guard. Um,
Yeah,
and
Whippler played well
mhm,
uh, last year in the limited start. I guess he played against Cincinnati, and he did pretty well.
mhm. Now
I
that
think he
that's if you
played.
think you need to break up that guard situation. I don't know if you need to next year. All right. Now you're right. If Batonio starts to break down, maybe you need to think about restructuring some kind of thing. But I'm not sure you want to let Batonio walk out the door as long as he wants to play. I see him as a kind of like a Joe Thomas type figure that like he's going to play as a Brown and retire as a Brown. I mean, if he starts to slow down, I think that's when you try to move him to the right side.
Well, all right. Here's what actually what I was thinking is this. Um, all right, let's say we trade Teller.
Okay.
We'll trade Teller, and we're going to put Dewan Jones at right tackle. What do you say we move Conklin to right guard? Does that make any sense to you?
What's
Would
his
he be
price
better off
range?
as a? I think that what when Conklin played, I think he played at Tennessee before he came to Cleveland, right?
Yeah, he was a right tackle at Tennessee.
Yeah, but
Well, you'd have to. I think
what
you'd
they did
want
with
to.
him, he had an injury, a knee injury in Tennessee,
Mhm.
and what they told him in Tennessee was, well, you've had a serious knee injury. We want you to lose about 15 pounds in order to take the strain off of that knee. And then when he came to Cleveland, they said, no, put the weight back on, and we need you to be big and strong and play at a higher level. But I think maybe Tennessee had something there, and so I'm thinking, well, why don't we have Jack reduce that weight back down to 310 or something,
Mhm.
and have him move over to guard.
Well, if you're
What
if
do you
you're
think? Is
planning
that
that,
crazy?
I don't think it's crazy. It's just two things are going to stand in your way. One, Conklin's ego. I mean, if he thinks he can still play right tackle, he's going to look at you like you're insane because tackle
Well,
gets paid a
dude, we
lot
got
more than.
Dewan Jones, and he's 6'7", weighs
At that
370
point, you just
pounds,
say
and
it's a
we're not
business,
moving
but
him.
right that way you say it's a business, but then you've got to move Conklin one way or another, either to right guard, and he will have to take it and say it's worth it for me to move to right guard to get paid what I'm getting paid, or I think I could like still play right tackle and I'm willing to take less or whatever the open market is willing to give me to play right tackle.
Open market? Are you kidding? We just signed him to a new deal for $1 billion.
If they cut him and they want to hit and they want to take what's his dead cap if they cut him, let me see it. I just saw it. 29.6 million. If the Browns want to pull that, that then he's out on the open market. But I think moving him to
29.
right
You
guard would
can't
be
take
interesting.
$20 million to give him away. That's crazy. They got to
I'm not
play
saying
him.
you do that. I'm just putting the options out there of what the options are, right? So I mean, if you want to put Dewan Jones in, I'm just going to point out last year the Browns were playing on fourth and fifth string tackles. mean, at this point in the offseason, you just want to load up on tackles and let the situation play itself out. You don't have to play Jed Wills just because you signed him to his 5th-year rookie deal. You don't have to play him. I think he's better than a lot of people give him, but he will take plays off and get your team in a bad situation occasionally. Okay. I think if you move anybody, I like moving Wills inside. I don't think he does well with those dropbacks, but you're going to have to get him off of a right tackle or a left tackle salary to do that. You'd have to convince him this offseason, like, okay, it's in your best interest to play right guard.
Well, I think after this season, he's a free agent,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd rather let him go free agent and get the supplemental draft pick.
Okay, but then you're okay. So let's say you do that, right? So then you're moving Dewan Jones to left tackle because I think that's where his future is left tackle.
We
Okay,
draft a left tackle with the first round. Remember first round draft picks? I know it's been ages since we had
we
one.
have those
Let's draft
things,
a left tackle. Let's draft a left
but if
tackle
you want a
number
good
one.
left tackle, you're going to have to get those within the top 15 because after you get the top 15, the tackle market drops to like second and third round. I mean, I don't want to see the
Well,
Browns picking top 15 next year.
okay, well, we'll sign somebody, but I'm not sure that we want to continue with Jed Wills forever. I don't want to make
Oh
that
no,
commitment at this point.
I agree with you. I'm just saying if you want to continue with Jed Wills, you're going to continue with him at guard, given your tackle structure, or right tackle, which he came out as a right tackle.
Well, yeah, he was a right tackle for a left-handed quarterback, though, so that was kind of an unusual
That's
situation.
still playing right tackle. I mean, at this point, he's played left tackle enough that like he's used to being a left tackle, and he would have to go back to playing right tackle. Which I mean, people think, oh, you played on one side, played the other. They're different positions. They really are.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I get
so
that.
he's going to have to go back to playing right tackle, but his skill set may be more feasible to right tackle. I mean, if he has a bad play, the quarterback at least can see it coming.
Okay, and Batonio is 32. How long, you know, is he going to be Joel Batonio?
Again, this is where I say I think you play him at left guard next year, see where he's at. Maybe then you have the conversation about moving to right guard, where that aging can be absorbed in right guard.
Well, okay. Well, we've got about three guys playing right guard now, so we've made the problem more complicated instead of more
Well, I
simple.
thought the initial question here is what happens if we trade Wyatt Teller? So now we're looking at the options for if we trade Wyatt Teller. I mean, if anybody,
Mhm.
again, don't tell Carly Teller, but like, I think if anybody on this offensive line is like, we need to just like part ways with them. One, it's Conklin. Two, it's Teller. I mean, I think you need to keep Posick, you need to keep Batonio, you need to keep Jed Wills because messing with that left side is always an issue. Plus, you got them all locked up. So what's the point? Like Teller's locked up anyway. I think what we're trying to look at is what happens with the salary cap situation. You know, and I understand why the Nick Chubb situation became a thing, right? Because if you cut him, there's only a $4 million dead hit as opposed to a $15 million salary. But I don't think cutting Chubb is a good idea either. I think you just got to
Well, they're going
restructure
to
some money.
renegotiate that. There's no way that they're going to take a $15.8 million cap hit. They
Right.
want to renegotiate a 3-year contract. That's what Chubb wants. That's what the club wants. Nobody wants a 1-year deal. So that
Yeah,
the
I heard you
whole
talking about that on
debate
the
is absurd.
Fanatical Elves podcast, and I thought you were absolutely right. That's another one of those players you just want to keep him around. And I think he wants to be around. The team wants him around. It's just got to have a deal that makes sense. And I'm not sure 15 million is something that makes sense, but he is ripe for contract extension.
Yeah, that is just a signal to renegotiate or extend his contract. So
Yeah.
I'm
I do question honestly, like, do you need Batonio and Teller on this offensive line if you're not going to have a strong commitment to outside zone running? Okay, that they're both actually really, really good at that kind of an offense. But if you're moving away from that offense because of Deshaun Watson or whatever reason you're moving away from it. If you're moving away from that style of offense, do you need the guards to run that offense anymore? And with Batonio, I mean, left guard named Joel, I'm always biased towards them, but you know, I'm not sure you need Wyatt Teller. And that position is easier replaced than the left guard, and you may lose some of the run blocking, but you may actually gain in pass protection should you move in a different direction in that situation. So that's just from an X and O's perspective. I think on the right tackle you need a run blocker. Conklin will do that. Left tackle you need a pass blocker more than you need a run blocker, and Jedrick Wills is adequate. Question, is that a long-term situation? I don't know, but God help any person that has to follow Joe Thomas, and that's what he did. So, so I don't think Jed Wills could do anything right in our eyes anyway, just because he's following Joe Thomas.
Yeah, well, yeah, I do think that the Browns have got to trade an offensive lineman this offseason. I don't know who it will be,
I
but I
think
could
I think
see
you're trying to
very.
trade Conklin. I think Conklin's the guy. If you can trade
I
him,
don't see
that's who you
how
want
he
to
can be
trade.
traded. I think his contract is so overpaid that it doesn't make any sense unless the Browns are willing to somehow absorb all the money, in which case, uh, there's no benefit to trade him. But I think the guys that are tradable are the guards,
Mm-hmm.
really.
Yeah,
I think both
I
of
think
the
they are. Yeah.
tackles, both of the tackles are just overpaid and therefore don't have trade value.
I mean, I could see Teller being somebody that like the 49ers might be interested in, the Titans would be interested in, like you said, the Patriots would be interested in, the Jets might be interested in. A team that like wants to do this outside zone type scheme, he's gonna bring in the money. And the question is, are the Browns that committed to that scheme that they're still willing to pay two of the top 10 salaries to guards in the league to do it? I'm not sure they're that committed to it. So then you're talking about parting ways with a guard, and then that, my opinion, would be Teller.
Yeah, my sense is that they probably have, they've been drafting young offensive linemen, and my sense is that they regard them as successful.
Mm-hmm.
That Whipler or Whippler, I'm
Luke
sorry,
Whippler.
is
Mm-hmm.
probably a pretty good player, and that they'd like to see him evolve into a starter. And uh, you know,
You almost hope that Whippler would become the long term answer at center, but Posic's holding down his own. He's another one of those guys that, like, historically, his pass blocking hasn't been the best, but he's been a really good run blocker. Um,
mhm.
now, last couple of years, he's really developed under Bill Callahan as a pass blocker. So I can see keeping him. Now I'm trying to look up some contracts here for like Whippler and like what years they
Dawson
are.
Deaton. I don't know about Dawson Deaton. We haven't seen very much of him.
Mhm. They
Um,
have Whippler still listed as a center. At least Spotrac does, because that's what he was originally,
yeah,
was a center.
yeah, but he
Um,
didn't play much center. What about? Well, also we had Nick Harris was a nominal second string center.
I I
He
think
is a free agent. I don't. Do the
I think
Browns
we've
try to
seen the
resign him?
last of. I think we've seen the last of Nick Harris. Nick
Well, have
Harris,
we?
yeah. My opinion is we have, but he will be another good litmus test for where this offense is going, because Nick Harris was very good coming out of Washington as a zone blocker. Okay, his pin and pull stuff wasn't the best. His pass blocking, he was overmatched. That's how he's gotten hurt in a lot of ways, is getting overmatched by a 300-pound nose tackle who has arm length on him and start pushing him back, and he's pulling calves and hurting his knees. Now, as a zone blocker, he's quick, he's agile, he can get into the blocks, and that's his value. So if they come back and they re-sign him, I mean, that's a good signal that they're going to stay with a lot of zone plays.
The other, yeah, actually, I think your overall point that they may not be committed to the zone style of
Mm-hmm.
blocking is a very good one. I think that they really want to get a offense that's more conducive to Deshaun Watson's style of play. But the point I was going to make was that Nick Harris may be the first string fullback, and
You with your
I'm not
fullbacks,
sure.
Elliot.
Yeah,
You and the
I like
fullbacks, man.
I like fullbacks. I do, but I don't, we never saw. One thing that burns me up about Pro Football Focus is they never grade him as a fullback. They don't list him as a fullback. I don't believe,
That's
but it seemed
because
like to me he was pretty devastating. Whenever I saw him play, he seemed like he was pushing his man backward, and he was really good at it. I thought, man, he might be, a all pro fullback, and nobody's noticing him.
well, you're gonna have to
And
give
I
him a
guess
running
then the
back
question
number.
is,
You got to
yeah,
give him a
yeah, change him,
give him
change
a
him
running back
to,
number and let him play fullback, right? But traditionally, that fullback role has been absorbed into that H back multi position player that's usually been your tight end,
he's
right? Because
usually
you're
been a tight end. So
mhm.
yeah, the question is, can you justify a roster spot for a guy who plays fullback? I don't know.
I mean, don't the
Um, the,
who's got that other Watt brother? Doesn't he play on some team? The Watt brother that's a
that
fullback.
that I don't know.
Yeah, there's one of them that's a fullback. I mean, fullback. I mean, unless you're again on like an offense like Kyle Shanahan's, where you've got Kyle Juszczyk, who not only is a fullback but he's also a receiver. So that's what makes Juszczyk so interesting is that he can come out of the backfield and be a receiver out of the fullback position. You don't have a lot of that in the league. Fullbacks tend to be like, Nick Harris, big guy, rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, going to go block somebody. The problem with fullbacks in your offense is that offenses tend to just key the fullback. Wherever the fullback goes, that's where the football is going. And you can't run an offense consistently like that because everybody's just going to line up and just watch where he runs and just start running there. The Browns have been pretty good at if we have a fullback running some misdirection with the fullback, but long term, your fullback position is very much a predictor of where the ball is going, unless you're Kyle Juszczyk. And then you can run out of the backfield and catch balls and stuff and not be a tradition. I mean, he's more of a third down
Mhm.
back than he is an actual fullback.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, he's a truly multi-dimensional
Mm-hmm.
player. Nick Harris is not, and that's why I'm
Yeah.
not sure whether he can justify a roster spot. But he also did pretty well as a backup offensive lineman, both at
Mm-hmm.
center and at guard. So I'm not sure if the Browns attempt to re-sign him. I don't know that he's going to get a substantial pay raise just because he's a free agent.
Right.
I would
He's got a
expect
long history of
sign.
injuries too.
Well, there you go. So I think he'd probably be re-signed at close to the NFL minimum.
Right. And I think the fact that you picked up Luke Whippler should tell you a lot about how they felt about that center position and Nick Harris long term.
Well, okay, point well taken. Although I would also say that where did they draft him? Around six?
I mean, that's where you draft offensive linemen, man. 3 through
Yeah, but
6.
I think in round
Unless
six,
unless you're a left tackle, you're going in the first 15. Other than that, offensive linemen are going in round 3, 4, and 5. I mean, 6, it might just be we'll take a flyer on this guy. But I mean, the fact that you're still willing to take a flyer on a center,
yeah, but he also plays guard. You draft the best available athlete in round six. You don't say, "Oh, I'm going to draft a guy that satisfies my positional need." I don't think you draft that way anyway. You draft whoever can actually play football.
well, I agree. I still think it's
Right.
interesting they're pulling in centers. I mean, if you had just
None.
Posick and Nick Harris, okay, you had Nick Harris primed to take on that position, and they were actually going to start him at that position, and Posick was the backup. Remember, they signed him as the
Yes.
backup, and Harris ended up getting injured right at the beginning of the season, and Posick took over and never looked back.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
Nick
Well.
Harris is reliable. Your best ability is availability, and that's where he struggles.
Well. Yeah. I'm not sure how many times Nick Harris got injured, but it seemed like didn't he have calf injury or something on top of the big injury?
Mm-hmm.
He had a what did he do? Break his leg or something?
Yeah, I mean, one time he injured his calf in New York on that surface. He got bull rushed, and the guy basically tore his calf bull rushing.
But
That's the quintessential you're overmatched injury.
well, anyway, I like Nick as a fullback. I think I never saw Nick get stopped as a fullback. Maybe he did. I didn't watch enough of the play in order to pick that up, but he looked unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then they also tried to use him as the uh, third tight end. That one, it looked like they wound up abandoning that formation after about mid-season. So that maybe was not as successful as we would have liked. But okay. Yeah, and so yeah, I'm anticipating that the Browns are going to trade somebody from the offensive line just to kind of rectify the long-term budget. I think they'd like to trade either Wills or Conklin. I think it will be very difficult to do so, just based on the recent injury history of both players and the fact that they just really gave both of them too much money in order to make them have any real value to other teams. Maybe they can sweeten that by picking up part of their salary. But
And they've also
I
shown the
also,
league that the Browns can win without them. So, you know, that further degrades their value when, like, hey, I'm paying you this much money, but when you got hurt, we won without you.
yeah. So why did we pay that much money? Um,
Exactly. That's what the other teams are going to ask. Did they really that much of a difference maker?
yeah. Well, speaking of difference, what about Jaron Christian? Um,
I think you retain him
he
and keep
played
him.
tackle for 9 games and no real
He made good
disaster
progress.
happened.
He made good progress too. So I do think you keep him. He's not all pro material. He'll give up plays, but you keep him. I mean, honestly, if you can upgrade a tackle, I would do it. If you can get upgraded tackle while getting rid of salary, I would do that too. Either
Yeah,
one of them. I'd be happy. I'd be okay with trading either one of them.
yeah, no, I think you do that, and the other thing is that even if one thing you can possibly do with part of that $13 million is even if it doesn't help your 2024 cap, it's going to make a difference in 2025 and 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the moves that the Browns are making are, we'll just pile on money in 2025 and 2026 and it'll be okay. It's not really like that. The Browns intend to play football and keep the playoff window open as long as Deshaun Watson plays football in Cleveland. And they're going to
Mm-hmm.
have trouble doing that if they keep on pushing money into the near future. I believe that they're uh, going to have trouble doing that. So they really have not managed the cap as well as I would have liked for them to do.
I would like to
They
see
just
them. I would like to see them literally take this 63 million, 64 million hit this year. Because if you can do that, right? Doesn't that go down in future years? I mean, it's not
no,
64
it
million a
stays
year.
64. It stays at 64 this year and the year after that and the year after that.
Well, that'll become less and less part of the percentage of the cap as much as the cap goes up.
Right. That is really going to help the Browns that the percentage wise,
Mm-hmm.
the cap hit will be lessened and the Browns investment will look proportionately less foolish. So
Yeah,
that is
they're
going
they're
to
gonna
help
have
the
to sit
Browns.
on they're gonna have to sit on this Watson situation with their cap. I mean, that's a
But
lot of
the
money.
other thing is what makes it uh, doubly important is that Watson and his agent have less leverage because a week ago it looked like the Browns absolutely had to extend Watson one more year. There
Mm-hmm.
was no other way around it. They were going to extend Watson. They needed to clear $30 million by restructuring or extending his contract. And they were going to have to make him, kind of like Kirk Cousins. You're going to have to be either the highest paid quarterback or very close to the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And it was probably going to be guaranteed money for another year or maybe 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And now say, well, you know what? Deshaun, we don't actually have to extend you. We're just
Yeah.
going to bite the bullet and pay you the $64 million, grin and bear it, and we can clear that $7 million just by renegotiating Nick Chubb, and
Yeah.
that will do it.
Yeah, and I
And
also think by not extending Watson, you put him into an almost prove it situation. I mean, yeah, you've got him for 3 more years, but if he wants to be anywhere near what he's making after 3 years, he's going to have to prove that he's worth it, as opposed to, oh, hey, we're in a salary cap situation. We're going to have to extend you just because of the money we initially gave you and then restructured you on. So I'd like to see him have a little pressure in terms of just prove it. I think he's played well. When he's been out there, he's played well. The problem is he's not out there.
yeah, we don't know for sure. Oh, it's just his shoulder. That'll come back for sure. Wait a minute. You can't have a quarterback with a bum shoulder. What Browns? What are you thinking? There is no plan B. He has to be healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and he may not be healthy. And so this is a potentially unaffordable, disastrous situation. I think that it behooves the Browns to not extend Watson for another year if they can avoid it, and especially if he's got to be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. So
Mm-hmm.
taking away his leverage is
Yeah.
very significant.
I also think, we're talking about this offensive line stuff. Another way you keep him healthy is you have an offensive line sitting there that can actually block, which I think they do when they're healthy, right? You kind of have to keep some little help with Jedrick Wills. Maybe Conklin can hold his own. Teller will have some issues just because, that's who he is. Posick and the Batonio are pretty reliable. So if you can keep Watson upright in the pocket throwing passes and create an offense designed around getting the ball out quick, you can keep him healthy. But in the meantime, that also puts the pressure back on him to perform to justify his contract, particularly if he wants an extension. I mean, who wouldn't want an
Yeah, well,
extension at $63 million?
I don't know if you can keep. I don't know if he is healthy to start with, because he just had shoulder surgery, and that's non-trivial for a quarterback, in my estimation. I don't know, maybe. Oh, it's nothing. Shoulder surgery, big deal. I don't know. Maybe it is no big deal.
Well, he's got to do the
But
proper rehab and get his proper mechanics back. But I was watching the Super Bowl, and neither one of those teams had a backup quarterback in the Super Bowl. So there comes to a point where you have to protect your quarterback, and the quarterback has to protect himself.
all I know is I want to have 3 quarterbacks on the active roster, and it
And
behooves the Browns to
two of
sign
them
the best
will
guys that
two
they
of them will
can.
not take you to the Super Bowl.
Well, what about Kurt Warner? Was Kurt Warner able to take his team to the Super
Kurt
Bowl?
Warner
I think he
started that season.
he was the backup quarterback.
He started that season.
Yeah, but they signed him as the backup quarterback. He
And
was
he
the
was he
backup
was a
quarterback.
nobody and came out of nowhere. So it's not
Yes,
like
he
they
was
went
the
out and
backup quarterback.
it's not like they went out and they got like the best backup quarterback and signed him for a lot of money and put him on the roster. They got a guy from
Yeah,
like the
okay, there's my point.
Barnstormers.
They signed the number 3 quarterback, outperformed the number 2 quarterback, and Dick Vermeil had the
Mm-hmm.
balls to actually promote him, but he
Mm-hmm.
was on the roster, and that's why they were able to start him.
Well, that was before you had practice
I don't
squads.
even remember the name of the second string quarterback, but they had a second string quarterback, and they said, you know what?
Was
I
it
think this
Green?
Warner is actually better than the second string guy, and we're going to start him. And said, Vermeil, are you out of your mind? And he did anyway.
Yeah. Okay, well that's all I got today, Elliot.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is a really good discussion. I don't know if we resolved anything. We'll find out what the Browns do. It looks like, you know, I expect there to be some moves in this offseason on the offensive line. I'll be very surprised if the starting lineup is the same as it was on opening day in 2023. I think it will be different. I think there will be some player that will change teams, and we may have somebody that changes positions this preseason. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But
So I got a
very
question.
educational, Joel. Very
Is
grateful to you for coming on this show.
Hey,
Yes.
you're the cab guy. I have a question for you. is Zadarius Smith on the roster for this year? Like, is he signed or is that a 1 year?
No, he has the ability to become a free agent, so he is becoming a free agent. This will be made official when the league year starts. So at the
Okay.
moment, he's on the roster, but when the league year starts, he'll be a free agent.
Well, then I need to see the salary cap numbers with that because the ones I'm looking at have him on there, so it may be less than
Yeah, no,
7 million.
of course he's on the roster. Everybody's on the roster until he's not. But he will be a free agent when the league year starts.
Yeah. All
And
right. Cool.
yeah, we have a gaping hole at defensive end. So everybody's saying that, oh, I want a wide receiver. I want a wide receiver. Well, look, man, we don't have a defensive end. Can we have a defensive end, please? At least we have one or two wide receivers, but there is no defensive end other than Myles Garrett. And that's a problem.
Well,
So hopefully we'll
you got
resign
some
Zadarius.
guys you got some guys, right? You got Alex Wright, you got Isaiah McGuire. I think Okoronkwo is still on the squad unless he.
Okaranko. Yeah, I'm not sure whether he'll be ready for the start of the season or not. I don't know. But yeah, there are some credible people, but we really
Mhm.
would like to have Zadarius. Now, Zadarius is not going to be an every down defensive end, but I think if we get him to be 50% of the snaps, he might be really good. It's kind of like, Baltimore rediscovered Jadeveon Clowney. He couldn't do anything with the Cleveland Browns, and maybe he was playing too many snaps for us. But all of a sudden, he went to Baltimore and he was his old self. So we need to
Clowney,
get
it
that
makes more
figured out.
sense as a 3-4 outside linebacker, which is what he was playing over there in Baltimore, and they primarily used him as a pass rusher. So he wasn't asked to
Yeah,
line up with his hands on the ground and take on an offensive tackle and defend the run like he was in Cleveland.
yeah. Well, yeah. But yeah, I'd like to use Darius Smith as a designated pass rusher as well.
Yep.
I think that's what he does best. He can do other things. I'm not meaning
Mhm.
to demean his talent, but I think we would really like to see him rush the passer at the same time as Myles Garrett. And it was kind of cool when Jim Schwartz would line up both of them on the same side. That kind of made me chuckle a little bit. That
Yeah.
was fun.
Then what do you do?
Help! Yeah, three defensive. I like the three defensive ends too. They did that a few times. You know, shades of Greg Williams, three defensive ends on the same defensive line. I like that. All right, sir. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show. We'll do it again, I hope.
Yep.
And
Just let me know. Bring
everybody have a
on.
great week. Hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did. We're looking forward to the draft and the free agency and all that kind of stuff. And we'll find out how many of these moves actually take place. Um, Please comment. You can reach me at th village elliott on Twitter, and comment on YouTube is also a good way. And go Browns.
Go Browns.